I think we're good. So here we are. We're back in conversation here. The World Joy movement is flowing, and the movement part is taking place. And one of the things that's really lovely about when looking at the World Joy movement, we're a bunch of people who've decided to try and figure out how to take the suffering in the world and transform it into a more joyful world. And what's really lovely about our approach is that we're all practitioners. We're practitioners of joy and uplifting the world in our own way. Now, that being said, it doesn't necessarily mean that we are also just one-dimensional people who only experience joy at all times in life. And I love having these conversations, especially when we have a coaching conversation, because it gives room for us as leaders, as people who are really embarking on a journey to say, how do we make our impact, to both be out in the world creating and co-creating and collaborating and bringing new ways of uplifting people out there, but then also still having space for our internal demons, the thoughts and doubts that creep up, the hidden fears, and also the limiting beliefs and mindsets that we might have. We can have a space for all of that so that we can be and enjoy the process of excavating, or at least getting different perspectives on it. That's I enter into this conversation here wanting to create that much space in this conversation. I have no idea where it's going to go. This is a continuation of an earlier conversation that we had. Philippa and I met yesterday, and we had a deep coaching conversation, and there were some things that were still on the table that we wanted to at least create space to bring back into the room. Now, Philippa, in a bit here, I'm going to open it up for you. I want to bring you into this room and such, but I'll say this from the very beginning. We may not talk about anything that we talked about from yesterday. We don't need to continue in a linear step-by-step fashion from that. Because when you're operating in a place of joy, you're coming from a place of wholeness, you're coming from a place of completion, synergy. And when you're coming from coaching, since we're not in the information-based game, we're in the insight-based game. If we're able to find various insights that actually help you see your world differently, then from that place, the options that might become available for you, the challenges and roadblocks that you felt like you were facing, and the possibilities that you want to create, you might be able to take. They may have a totally different place within you, or as we go forward. So I'm just going to let you know, I'm not tied to specifically continuing the conversation from the other day. And I'll also make sure that we create space and bring it in case there is something to really continue down. But are you good with allowing? My biggest thing is let me be in the space with you to help you create more joy through the way that you show up in the world. Yeah. Are you good with that, Philippa?
Yes, I'm really good with that.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and a bit here. We're already playing. Like my shoulders are shaking here. You told me before we came on here that there was something that you really wanted to express, and joy for me is all about unabashed, unapologetic expression. So please, in the joyful way that is you, please share your joy with us.
Okay, so this morning I was journaling and thinking about the day ahead, and knowing that this conversation was coming up. And yesterday we said that we're going to talk about burnout today. And I actually wrote, we're going to talk about burnout today, which is a place that is the furthest from joy. It's in the land of shame, I wrote, of mental and physical limitations. And it's the antithesis of abundance, which is where we started yesterday. Abundance. I said I wanted to create abundance. And I wrote this because I was thinking World Joy Movement and joy, and where does this fit in, and you introduced it beautifully as well. How we are all on a journey, and it's being in joy is a beautiful place to be. And we're not always there. And that's the life, that's journey, that's the journey.
Thank you for bringing that in. Like, I think there's elements here that I get curious immediately about, um, and I think that this would be a good place for us to just kind of play out. We'll talk about burnout, if that's really real. What I love to look at is what is the stories that are around it, right? Is there a space where burnout and joy do live? You know, I'm not necessarily sure that they can't live in the same way. And that feels pretty radical. I'm not saying that I know the answer to of that there, but like perhaps the greatest insight of this conversation is that the definition that you just put out there doesn't need to be true.
Mm.
And I say that very because I could feel the energy in which it was held from my standpoint, and receiving that there. That's the first time I'm hearing it. It's like, by the way, we're going to be talking about this thing called burnout, and it's a bad thing, and it doesn't really necessarily work with joy, but we need to talk about it because so just know that it's okay, even though it's not really joyful, you know. And I'm like, ooh, this is it could be true. It may be generally speaking, as I'm walking down the street, that's where I would naturally go with things. And I think as we're in this space of co-creation and being whole, part of it here is the wholeness of like what it's the ability to look at things from different perspectives. And so you've already given me an insight into the way that you see your world. And that's incredibly important, especially as we're a movement of uplifting the world, and uplifting the world often involves uplifting individual people or the way that they see the world. So now I'm getting a chance to see like where are we starting from with you here. So thank you for bringing that into the space here. I invite you to us being open to a definition of both burnout and joy that is even more expansive than that, without knowing if like we might get to the end and be like, no, it was really good. Like we captured it perfectly. It was chef's kiss, as they say, right? It was chef's kiss. And I'm grateful that you put it in here, because I think it gives us a chance to see and slow down a little bit and see like, okay, what's going on there. I'll also say this here, and I think the other thing that's really interesting here was, how do I say it? So you framed the conversation really nicely. And there's also another part of it in the back of my mind. I was like, oh, it feels like, well, let me just ask you. There was an element that felt like, okay, I'm going to protect the person who's coming into this space to watch this in some future day, because we're going to talk about something that is not that and there was something in there. I really respect you for being someone that's like, I'm going to own this space and create this space and set the frame, and like we were already in co-creation. I really respect you for that. And there was a part of me that was like, oh, I wonder why that was really important to say, you know. So let's start with that here as we go down.
Yeah, I would love to answer
let's
that. That was really good that you captured that, because yeah, maybe the word is protect. The word that popped up for me now was acknowledge. I wrote that to acknowledge something. And what I was acknowledging was something that you said yesterday, where you were saying, oh yeah, you mentioned burnout, and then it's woo, woo. And it's like, oh, Philippa has learned how to talk about her burnout, and she does it so well that she moves on smoothly, quickly, as though we're talking about the blue sky and the sunshine of this particular day, you know, the weather. And it's not real. It's not, you know, and you picked up on that, and you know, so let's give it the space that in actual fact, not it deserves, that's the wrong word, but a space that I'm not giving it. And that could be the protection side. And I wrote this morning and I was nervous about our conversation today in a way that I am not normally nervous about having a conversation with you and knowing it's being recorded and, you know, going out there in the world. I love to share my processes and my vulnerability and being human with the world together with you. I believe that inspires other people. It was a acknowledgement of my nerves of this is, you know, you really nailed it yesterday. This is important for me to talk about. This is where there is something hiding, I'm hiding or protecting myself or whatever the word is. This really means something to me. And so I then wrote down that sentence because I'm thinking, how does this fit into the World Joy movement? And realizing it's beautiful. For me, it was beautiful. It was like, wow, we're for me, I sometimes, I often say to myself, we have to be sad in order to know when we're going to be happy, or when we're happy, not going to be, when we're happy. And it was almost like, oh, you know, to know joy, then there is that opposite. There is that feeling, that abyss, that just in much the same way there's that height, that amazing, oh my God, I'm up in the clouds somewhere, joy. That expansiveness and the constriction, the contraction, the smallness of burnout, the containment of it, and the freedom of joy. They cannot be without one another. It you know, it is, and because, you know, because you were saying that, some of the stuff I was going, it was like, have I felt more joy since crashing so spectacularly? And I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely live more intentionally. And I've gone on this journey of self-leadership, of learning how to set up my boundaries, of self-management. And it was a journey I was always half interested in, but it became like a mission. It became like, this is important. And this is not only important for me, but it's important for the world, so that I can go on this journey and then share that with others.
Yeah. Thank you, Philippa. And I want to acknowledge that there was just like some video things going on my screen. So hopefully I didn't throw you off too much. I'm going to do also a couple different things here, because I think that if we don't do it, it's going to get in the way of you actually being able to create what you want, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to release you of having to make this make sense or be worthwhile or be joyful or anything like I'm going to release you of anything having to do with any other person at any point in the future that watches this, whether they watch it today, tomorrow, or 30 years from now, right? Right now, you have a thing. You're one that reminded me about this. Self first, right? So for this conversation, I'm just releasing you of having to have to worry about anyone else, right? And the reason for this here is that I can imagine that one of the ways, like as you were talking here, the questions that were in my mind here, I was hearing the content, but there's also something that we really look at here in the World Joy Movement, which is the context. As I often say, I'm here to hear the things that aren't being said and to see the things that no one wants to be seen, right? And I'm still really intrigued by, it almost felt like that you needed to protect someone else entering into this conversation, not necessarily you, but almost like by protecting them, you're protecting you. And this seems really interesting to me. And like, this is part of the train on this one here. The question in my mind was, I wonder how often, like when Philippa is talking about burnout or someone else brings up burnout around Philippa, she feels like she needs to like make them feel okay with like that she's okay. Let me just check in on that there.
Oh, that was lovely. That was a nice concept. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't even know have any more words for that. That is absolutely that. It's fine now. I've got it under control. You know, that is part of my history and something I have learned so much from. And I've also learned to be grateful of aspects of it. And I'm still working on that gratitude, but it's there, that there is something there. And so, yeah, I definitely think so. It's a, but it's raw as well. There is still aspects of it that's raw. So when we brought it up yesterday, it's raw.
Yeah.
I was nervous because I know it's raw. And maybe it will be raw for the rest of my life. A place where that you know, it's not, maybe it's not about necessarily healing. It's maybe about acknowledging that happened. And it's not about smoothing it over and making it better, because that then kind of diminishes what happened as well. It's like, it happened and it felt like it felt, and it did what it did to me. And so that's it's not about healing. I guess it's about, for me then, you know, learning to be a part of my life more and more and more, and draw strength from that as well, you know, bringing that with me more and more, which I guess I'm not doing, you know, in many ways. I don't talk about it that much. I don't, you know, it's not.
Yeah. I really appreciate you, Philippa. Like, what's happening right now in this conversation, like what we're doing right now is we're spending some time creating the space for the type of conversation that will get you to someplace different when it comes to burnout, right? When it comes to this part here. It was a thing for me at the beginning to see, like, okay, I how do I say it? It's almost like, do we have the space right now? If I wanted to go in and just start asking the questions around the burnout and tell me, do we have the space right now for you to be able to actually express it in the fullness of you? Or are there other barriers that might get in the way of you actually being able to go there? So that's where I'm going to ask some things. I think we need to create some agreements for me to feel like I'm really being able to go to the places, and also for me to get a chance to understand, like, yeah, it's for the communication to come through clear and to be received, right? And I think for you to also go to places that you really want to go, like however it works, I can feel that. I get the sense of, like, when you came in the beginning with the definition there, that was you creating. If I'm hearing you, like, that was for me, in a sense of, like, I'm going to go into this conversation and we're going to talk about something that isn't this. And I also was hearing that isn't joy in your, like, and I was also hearing, like you're creating the space for you to be okay being in that conversation on this platform, right?
Yeah.
So that's part of it. I'm
Yeah.
hearing one. I'm hearing one there. So thank you.
Yeah.
Two, for me, for us to, like, in this co-created area that we're coming here together, my ask is that we make an agreement that we don't worry about anyone else getting any value from this conversation at all, right? Like that, like to be just self first here. That is and I'm going to play that game too, like, to just be present with just the two of us here in this space here. Are you in agreement to show up in such a way that no one else needs to get any additional value? It's like you're just here for the thing that you're here for.
Yeah, I am. And I'm going to add to that, because it's also what I thought just before I came on this call. And I stood here and I'm like, this is a space I can do this in, because I know you can hold that space. Whatever's going to happen, I have complete and utter 100% trust in that you will hold that space for me. And that was a, you know, significant thought for me when I came in here. And therefore means that I can come in as me, you know, I can come in and stand here. I feel grounded. I feel like this is our space, our conversation, and this is for me.
Awesome. Awesome. So let's continue playing with that. I want to just see for you, Philippa, like as we're creating a space for you, right? Um, Knowing like you brought up like the when I brought up the burnout and how you can make it look a certain way, how you can do things with it. I'm paying attention to see it like in this conversation already. How does Philippa treat burnout right now? How does she hold it? Where like is it something that's like is it something that's bright and it's like this is a gift that took place? Like I'm listening to all these different things that you're saying. Um, how will you? This is the question I think I need to know. How will you fool me or yourself in this conversation when we're talking about your burnout? Where are some of your escape pods? Where are some of the ways that you might try and kind of like, I don't know, I'm going to say wiggle out of the actual like transformation that's on the precipice?
Because I will tell you, it's a good thing that happened to me, and I've learned a lot from it.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
it, you know, if I start saying that, go, Philippa, you know, you don't need to tell me that. It's like we can always say that about something terrible that happened in the past. You know, there is a gift and a opportunity that will come from, you know, if we choose to believe that. That is not though visiting that spot, that place, and being there.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I like that's I had a couple different agreements around that, like around how to frame it. Cause I'm already seeing, I'm like, we don't need to leave here with a positive way of feeling about it. We don't need a rosy way of looking at this period like thing. And nor do we need to have a lesson to come out of it.
Yeah.
So let's call that out here, right? It's not to say like for this space and time, like if you don't feel like it was a positive thing, like just let's not even pretend, right? Let's not even pretend. Let's just see it for what it was. Because I think like if we're not doing that, we're missing what this space can offer, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm also gonna and so that actually I'm glad that you're seeing that, because the agreement I was gonna ask for you is like, don't worry about self-coaching. Release yourself from self-coaching here, right? Where it's like, and then I could see the way that I'm like, oh, she's self-coaching right now, and we're never like, it's like we're going down, and it's like, and let's just go back up to the top. There we go. Notice how we did good job, everyone. A star, like A plus star, gold star. We looked at that, but don't worry, I'm okay. Right.
We looked at it on the surface. I waved at it, and then we ducked back up again.
Yeah. My invitation is for you to not be okay.
Yeah.
Right. And that's and I do mean that. Like, don't worry about me. I'm going to trust that, and this is different than most other spaces, right? But I'm going to trust that like this might be a space where the best thing that can happen for you may be to be undone a bit about it, so that you can look at it from a different perspective. I don't see you as broken. I don't see you as needing to be fixed. And we are here in a movement. And part of the movement is sometimes we're moving energy. I mean, honestly, we're moving energy from any other state into the energy of joy. Mm. Right. And so with that, I don't know what might come out of it, but I think I couldn't really get into this here until we created the space for all of that to be, just it's not even acceptable. It's just like, it's to be a non-issue, and not like, it's just, if it shows up, it shows up, but you don't need to protect yourself. And you certainly don't need to protect me or anyone else on this. Are you like really hear that invitation? Because like, are you good to play that way? How would actually, let me just make sure, how would you frame what I'm inviting you to do? How would you say what I just said there? If you had a bottom line it in terms of what it means to you, what I just said, what would you call that?
I would call that, if I end up standing here crying for 10 minutes and can't get a word out, that's also fine.
Awesome. Are you willing to play that way?
Yeah.
All right, cool. And you might be angry, you might be joyful, like not joyful, but like happy. They're two different things. But like let's just play. Okay, Philip, I feel like you're in the room now. I feel like it can be in the room without it, like without us having to grasp it differently. Is there anything else that I missed that might get in the way, that might make this part of this thing around exploring the burnout more slippery or more elusive than it might seem?
Yeah, that if I don't cry, that's also good. You know, it might be that what I feel, it doesn't have to go there. It doesn't have to be, that I don't want to be standing here judging myself for that. Oh my goodness, I'm not crying for 10 minutes, and having complete sort of meltdown, and it doesn't have to be that either. And I want that to just be said in the room. It's like, let's see what happens.
Awesome. All right, Philippa, let's play. And I really acknowledge you here. We took time. It took like 20 minutes to really set up this space. A lot of times people just try and jump in and would have missed the very first thing you said. Like for me, I was like, oh, we're not in the space yet where we can really honestly talk about where we need to go here, And I acknowledge you for being in this conversation and calling yourself out, for you proactively saying, hey, by the way, this is how it's going to look. And as we go through, like last time we played the peekaboo game, just keep calling yourself out as it goes along. And me, I'll take 20 minutes to make sure that we're actually having a real conversation as opposed to anything that's just not going to serve. You good with that?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Thank you for your trust in me. Thank you for your trust in me. And my just, my objective is not to make you cry or anything. I just want to make sure we can actually see the thing, and give you a chance. I have no idea what would actually serve you with it. That's like my main thing, is to give you a chance to be able to be with the burnout in a way that you've been in, potentially in a different way, such that while you're out there creating abundance, in the back of your mind, or like the anchor that's keeping you from actually flying in the world isn't, but what if this leads to burnout?
Yeah, exactly. It's that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you mind just to like really give it presence here? And you can say no. So at any point I'm going to lead, but you're in control. All right. I've heard you say that you had burnout. Would you be open to sharing your flavor of burnout, sharing the story of your burnout here? Is that something you'd be open to?
Yeah. And I'm going to also, I want to say that and I'd like you to help me here as well. So guide me a little bit. I don't want to tell the story that I normally tell. I'd like it to be more real. So it started with my incredible ambition and my need to create abundance and wealth for myself and my boys and my family. And it also arose from a passion for children in the world to have good quality, high quality education. And that's what drove me a lot as a teacher, as a principal, in everything I was doing. It was very focused on children's rights. And then also when I was a principal, the rights of my personnel, that they could have work-life balance. I miss, though, a vital part of that. I didn't have work-life balance. In fact, I didn't even know how to have work-life balance. And I was full on in every aspect in my life, as a mother, in creating a home, in being a wife, in being whatever role I had in the educational world and doing it in a foreign language. I just want to add. So I not only learned a foreign school system, I learned it in another language, and I kept getting better at it and excelling and going up the career ladder. And I made sure my kids had the best education. So if they weren't, you know, if the school was no longer serving them, I was strong enough to move them. If my kids ever were bullied at school, I stepped in and I made sure the school sorted it out. It was solved within 24 hours. And, you know, I was a powerhouse. I never tolerated bullying in my own schools as well. It was sort of this sense of love and passion to create a world where people really can excel. And I saw that as my leadership, whether I was standing in a classroom as a teacher, whether I was standing there as a careers advisor or a school administrator or a principal or as a mother at home. My leadership role has always been to create a environment where people can thrive, where they can be the best possible person they can be. And as I say, the talking about this now, and I'm really digging deep to actually bring out a completely different way of talking about this. This is new. I've never said this before in this comparison. It's that leadership is still something, that type of leadership is still important to me. But it was this one part of the jigsaw, you know, to be that model, to live like that, you know, the live as you preach type of thing. I was busy creating for everybody else at the same time as I was emptying myself, continually emptying myself. And it probably, you know, I probably could have kept going for a lot longer. I may never have even burnt out if I had not made a decision to get divorced, to split up from my husband, because I felt that the relationship we were in, even though we still cared very much about one another, no longer was conducive to the family. We were unhappy when we were living together. It was better that we were friends and didn't live together. And my sons were suffering. And when my sons suffer, I don't tolerate it. And so I would just like to say that, you know, it was the easiest, most amicable divorce probably in the whole world. And we cared very much about one another, even afterwards. And that was the first thing. But by doing that, I also know that I felt that I had failed. And I think, looking back now, you know, whether it was depression from a clinical point of view, but I was definitely sad, grieving around the end of that marriage that had been there for 10 years. And I didn't deal with that. I didn't look at that. And then on top of that, I moved into a new relationship that wasn't really serving me. And at the same time as I then decided that my son needed to move from the place that we were living on. We were living on an island in the middle of the Baltic, and I wanted to move him to Stockholm. So it wasn't just like a move down the road. It's a big move. And I was also doing vocational training at the time at university level. So I was studying to be a qualified principal at the same time as I was doing a full-time or more than full-time principal's job, because that's what it is. It's a bit of a kamikaze kind of job. And so my plate was already full, just studying and doing the full-time job. And then I added the move on top of it, which required me to find another job to find schools for my kids, and to sell my house, pack it up, sell it, and move into a little apartment in Stockholm, because that was what I could afford. So I had to also scale down, get rid of a lot of stuff. So the whole of that I was doing in 2013, 2012. It doesn't really matter. It was around that time. And there was this year, and the house looked like it was going to sell, then it fell through, and I ended up asking the person that I was together with whether we could actually move in together with him in his small apartment, I and my son, so that at least my eldest son could start the school. It was like starting college in the USA or upper secondary school in England. It was that sort of level. He was moving and it was important for him. The reason I was doing it is because he's incredibly intelligent, and I knew, and the school even said to me, please move him to a place. He is not going to get the intellectual stimulus here on this island. He needs to be in another environment. And that was the baseline for doing what I was doing. It was an awful time for me, for my career. It was an awful time to be doing it for my younger son from his schooling point of view, but I still did it. And I made it work. I found solutions even when things didn't really fall into place. I remember my eldest son looking at me at one point, and he went, Mum, are we going to make this? Are we really going to move to Stockholm? It was so important to him. And I just looked at him and went, yeah, we're doing it. And I made it happen. I moved mountains and I made it happen. And I took a job that was too big for me, but it was like, it's a job, we're doing it. I'm going to do this. It was actually too big for me. And I knew it. Yeah, it was a feeling even at the interview. It was like, and I said yes, just to get everything in place so that I could make this work. And then I did the job. We lived in this tiny apartment. And at the same time, I started continued to look for apartments up in Stockholm. So we weren't even living in our own space. We were cramped into a little apartment with all of our stuff packed up in storage, just the basics with us. So we were camping basically for a number of months. And at the same time as, the job was too much for me. Well, it became even more too much for me, because I, as a principal, I had lots of vice principals, and within 2 months, they'd all disappeared. One of them had another job and 2 of them got ill. And suddenly, and then even my assistant got ill, or actually she was already ill. I sent her away and to go and get sorted out. That was, again, it's like, no, I'll cope. And of course I didn't cope, because basically I had no support system. I had nobody there. And suddenly I was basically doing the job of 5 people in a job that was already too big for me, in a position that was already stretching me way beyond my competency. But it was like, I'm doing this because this is going to work. And then we bought a house together. This person I was together with, and I'm going to say I am together with. We even got married after many years of living together. But at the time, we kind of did it as a financial thing, because we worked out that both of us actually paying for apartments, it would be cheaper if actually we bought a house together. So we did. And saying, if it doesn't work out, we'll sell it again and make money in a few years' time when our kids have sort of moved out. Actually, by the time they were moving out, we got married. We're still together. But it wasn't a good time for either of us. He was also struggling, had also his problems. So we spent the first few years wondering whether we should even be together. It was at that level. And by the time then I got to this, within a couple of months of being in this job, I wanted to leave. I remember standing there in my office on a Friday. It was like 9 o'clock in the morning. I shut the door and I had tears running down my face. And I'm like, I want to get out of here. And it's like, but I can't. I've got to do this. And so I kept going as my health got worse and worse. And I started feeling that sometimes I was dizzy when I was getting up out of a chair. I had trouble concentrating. I was having great trouble sleeping. and the immense pressure I was under all the time. And I just kept going. I kept going and I kept going, and I created an amazing Christmas for us. And then the new year came, and then I took myself off to Dubai for five days, because I was gonna then relax. Could I relax for 5 minutes? No. I was so overstretched, that there was no way that was going to happen. I came back and I realized that my health was so bad that things were not working. Things, my mental, things were not working anymore. And I knew that if I didn't stop now, I might not be able to get out of bed one morning. I'd gone too far. So I'm like, I think I think I'm burning out. And so I went to the doctor, and sure enough, that was what they diagnosed. And then, of course, then I was off sick. And within a month, my employer then said to me, we don't want you, we're kicking you out. Which in some countries you can do that. Actually, here in Sweden, it's very difficult to do that, to kick somebody out when they're on sick leave. So I fought tooth and nail to not let them do that until the November of that year. So that in the April they did that, and then in the November I made the decision to leave and organized a payoff and sort of settlement thing, and I left. But I left on my terms, and I left when I was ready, because I no longer wanted to have the "you are on sick leave" label on me anymore. I didn't want that. I felt that that wasn't serving me anymore, and I needed to step out of that with all of the consequences that had. And I thought, I'm not going to get better playing that I am sick game. I need to step out and go, I'm something else game, giving myself another identity and moving out of that. So and then that was perhaps the start of the journey to recovery, when I took over that.
So I'm going to pause before we get to the journey of recovery, right? How are you feeling inside right now?
I have tears behind my eyes, and I have a sort of sense of, there's two senses as well, sort of slowly welling up in me here. And one of the senses is that, wow, that was an interesting story, telling it like that. And some elements of it I've said before, but some I hadn't. And looking at it like that. And I also don't want to land in the familiarity of that story and then, oh, and it was okay. Because you know what? It wasn't okay.
What wasn't okay about it? Like, give us more. Tell me more.
It was, the feelings, everything I was doing was not okay.
Can I ask you a question around that in particular? Like, because there are certain times in your story that I got really curious. You talked about the Friday morning when you went into your office, and you had tears like streaming down your face, and you're like, I don't want to do this. Like, can you take me to that there? Then shortly afterwards, you talked about like the dizziness, the trouble getting up, the trouble sleeping, and this like feeling the pressure there. I would love to, like, you walk into the room. If you can take me to that day, you're walking to the room, to your office. You go there. It's a Friday morning. Most other people are excited. It's the end of the week, and for you, there's tears like running down your face. Like, what was going on through your mind? What led to it? Like, it wasn't just a spontaneous thing per se. Like, what was to the extent that you can remember? Can you take us to that moment and maybe just walk me through?
I can. It's this sense of pressure that was just always there now, and relentless. So each day then a new problem arose, a new challenge, something new was being thrown at me. And I felt this sort of, I was already bearing up, under an incredible weight, and felt so, this sort of constriction inside me. And I don't even know what it was that triggered, what actual event happened. But it was, and it might have been nothing. It might have been literally, I'd arrived at work and I go in there and I look at that, it's a new day, and what am I doing here? I don't even want to be here. I didn't even like the aesthetical, the actual surroundings. They weren't even inspiring for me. I actually hated the school building I was having to work in. Up until that point in my life, I had always lived and worked in beautiful places, funnily enough. And so that, and I think, so it was just walking into this room and closing that door behind me. And as I say, and I think it was closing the door. It was just like, I just need to close the door. I just need to breathe. And it was like, I just need to shut out everything when I did that. And I just stood there, and it was like, I still can't breathe. It's still all here. And this feeling of, I don't want to be here. And it was going through my head. It's like, I could just pick up my bag and I could walk out and never, ever come back. And just the fact that was going through my head at that time, it was there. It was there. And then, of course, the voice of reason sort of came over and went, you can't. You have kids to pay for. You have a home to sort out for them. You have no choice right now. Walk over to that desk, sit down, get in front of that computer and do your work. I think it was just after that as well. Some people came in and they were bringing up a problem. And I remember standing there and trying to deal with that conversation, just wanting to cry. And I maybe even said something like that. I don't know, and going, I'm at the limit. I cannot take one more thing. And I can't even remember whether I did that or didn't, but I may have done, because I was so weak that I couldn't be professional enough to keep that to myself. So I may have even said a sentence along those lines. And I remember then letting them out again and shutting the door, and just like, it was like I forced myself to do everything. I forced myself forward. I kept going. And it was and kept ignoring all of the signals, but it wasn't like I was ignoring, it was actively pushing them aside. And I've been doing that for a long time, warning signals, etc., and going, no, because this is the way forward. This is making something possible for my sons to stay here. And I've given them the Astrid Lindgren upbringing on Gotland in the middle of the Baltic Sea. Now they're getting streetwise in the big city Stockholm. And this is my life work. This is me being the best possible mother I can be. There was that part of me. And there was also another part of me, Niyama, that was going, and I need this too. That island was too small for me. I also wanted to stretch my wings and fly finally. And to also be an environment where I could grow more, even more, and be in a more international place. I over many years, I was missing using, missing my mother tongue. I spent 25 years speaking other languages and very little of my mother tongue. So 10 years German, 15 years of Swedish, or 12 years, 15, whatever. And I also think that part of me wanted that because I saw myself living in Stockholm. I saw myself living a different life, and I wanted it too. So I don't want this story to be just about, oh, wasn't she an amazing mother that did all that for her kids? That was one driver, but there was like this selfish, self-first, I want this too. This is, it's time. And when I say that, then another reflection comes up. And I think that's why it's still raw and so hurts, because part of me is going, and it didn't really work out, or it still hasn't really worked out as you imagined it. And you're still working towards that lifestyle, that way of being in Stockholm. It's been elusive and you're chasing it. Yeah. And that, and it's sort of, and of course that, no, I was going to say something, but that becomes an intellectual self-coaching. So we'll leave what happened previously in life, that could be that's not relevant. Today is sort of like, yeah, it was that today, it was like I had a glimpse of what it would feel like to earn a good salary, to live in a city, to be able to have easy access to the stimulus that I wanted to have intellectually and emotionally, and the richness of living in a city when I'd been and also to be close to the countryside, to have that sort of the Stockholm is not a very big city. It's easy to get out into the archipelago and enjoy the beauty of the nature and the countryside. So it's like I still had both. And I had this glimpse as I was a principal, and then I lost it all. It all disappeared. It all, and there's this sort of feeling of sort of always striving after something and never quite getting there. Not for me. And so the stories of, do I deserve this? Those negative thoughts, those things that are going to pull me down and go, maybe you're never going to get there. Maybe you're just going to pretend and play being that person that you want to be. And that and that I've never said before. I've thought it though, but I've never said it out loud. So in some ways it's a bit like, when I say that burnout, when I want to do the self-coaching thing, burnout was a good thing. It was a gift and an opportunity. Yeah, at some level it was, but you know what? Not really at the level that I would like it to be, because I haven't come back to that feeling I had of power and being in control of my life and my destiny, that I'm still in a space where I am, you know, in a fantastic supportive relationship, and together, you know, we're creating a lovely life, but it's still not, I still don't feel that I am contributing and I am that powerhouse I was. At the same time as I don't want to be the same sort of powerhouse I was, because I understand now that was destructive. I always emptied myself.
What else, Philippa?
Also, I feel, and it's something that comes up again and again, is I feel, even though I created something really good for my sons, I also feel that I've let them down. That because I fell so hard, and and the way I behave, a way somebody behaves when they're burnt out, is emotionally unstable. So and them living with a mother who in some ways, I suppose, had always been so incredibly strong for them and had shown them how to stand up for themselves in life, had shown them, you know, had protected them, had led the way, had created these things for them, was so weak and was so unstable and unable to sort of go out there and get another job again. It took me a few years to get a full-time job. They sacked me after 2 weeks because they realized you're still not back. I couldn't concentrate long enough. And so, and I also, at the time as well, when I was suffering, my youngest son was suffering as well. It took him time to get in, you know, it took him months, maybe even a year, more than that, to actually really like living in Stockholm area. He would say to me sometimes, I miss Scotland. You know, I'd like to just be able to turn up in school with the clothes that I love wearing, you know, which was kind of like sports clothes. He loves sports. He says, I don't want to turn up in a Gant or Ralph Lauren pullover, etc., because that was the type of school he was going to, because that was the place that we'd moved to. And it's like, I remember him coming home one day and he says, Mum, are you expecting me to be a civil engineer? And I'm like, no, you can be whoever you like. And I'm like, where do you get that from? Yeah, because all of my friends at school, they're going to be studying this, this, and this to be either become basically a lawyer or a civil engineer. That was the expectation. That was the place. So we had come literally from this Astrid Lindgren, you know, Pippi Longstocking, you can, you know, world where you can be who you are and you are the strongest, to a, you know, I'd also put him in a place where there was a completely different set of values and rules, which was so far from, you know, his blissful childhood. He was a child still, although he was an early teenager. He was much more of a child than everybody else in his class. They were so much more streetwise. They were so much more grown up than he. And so that was also a part that really hurt, that added to that suffering that I was feeling. It was like, and you know, today, I don't think either of them would ever say that they regret the move. And I know both of them are flying high and they're loving it. They're absolutely loving it. And my youngest son has the most amazing group of friends here, and he's had the most amazing experiences he would never, ever, ever have had if we'd stayed where we'd stayed. So there's a happy ending to that. But Niyama, it still gets to me. I can still wake up, first thing in the morning and feel regret, feel, fear and shame, literally shame sometimes, because I won't even talk about it, and go, what did I do? What did I put my youngest son through? And even what worry did I put my kids through that I wasn't functioning for a long time? Even like before we moved, there were things that were not really functioning right, where I was low and pushing forward, and they were young teenagers. They can see it. They're not blind. They're kids. They sense everything. And so there's this feeling that I failed as a mother during that time as well. And I look back on that and think, you sort of this classic sort of, I'd love to turn back the clock and do it differently. Not the move, but to have made it somehow better, to have been there more for them, to have been stronger, to have not let them down. So I didn't just let myself down, I let them down. And they are two people that are worried about me today. They will express worry, and they will say to me, we don't want you to burn out again. Oh, it's good that you're doing this, but, and I get it. I totally get it. I get where that fear is coming from. You love your parents and you don't want them to go through something like that again, because you don't want to go through it again. Because it will affect them. Even though they don't live with me anymore, of course it's going to affect them if they knew that their mother then burnt out again. So there is a fear and a worry there sometimes, a kind of, we'll believe it when we see it, that you succeed. And that also plays into the fact that I feel that I can never, that burnout is something that is always there. Then it's like, it can't, it's like other things that have happened in my life, I can walk away from, and it's history. But it's like, it's as though burnout won't let me go. I will have friends that will say the same as well. Watch out, that you don't burn out again. Watch out that, that you don't overbook yourself, that you don't do too much, that you're a high achiever, you will. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And when you're passionate about something, you'll go all in. Yeah, I will. And so there's a part of me that feels that the world is not giving me space to be who I want to be. In a well-meaning sense, it's not in a, we're holding you back, but in some ways it is. It constrains me, because that fear, that worry is contagious, like I said yesterday. And also it might not, it will be contagious because then I will feel it. And I don't need that, because I can feel that all by myself at other times. So it's compounded. It's like, I can feel that fear and worry on my own. And then I meet someone who expresses that fear and worry, and I get to experience that as well. So I get to experience my own fear and worry and somebody else's. It's like, what? It's actually enough that I have my own. Because everybody, my nose is running now. It's because everybody is, has their own fears and worries. Every normal person does. And that kind of is enough. Having other people fear and worry as well about me, that compounds it. That makes it, more fear and worry to deal with. and a sense of what is it I have to do to prove to people that I've got it now. So it's like, if I have a day where suddenly tiredness hits me, it's probably just because tiredness has hit me. It's because, you know, something's happened in my life, and you know, I was worried about something, or stressed about whatever, you know, or I did too much. I had, you know, it was too intense, and I got tired, just like any other person would. It doesn't mean to say I'm on the cusp of burnout again, because then the following day I'm fine again. Or, you know, I recover. I go to bed early and I get up and I'm like, yeah, great. I was tired yesterday. I'm not tired today.
Yeah. As you say, that there's a few different things that come up here. Thank you, Philippa. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being real here in this space. And I'm saying something now because a curiosity came here. And you said, what is it that Philippa has to do to prove to people that you've got it now? And just the question that comes up, the curiosity I have is what is it that you have to do to prove to yourself that you've got it now?
Yeah. And that is definitely the question. And it's difficult to pull the threads apart, because you know, I will set up something, I will do something, and I'll be enjoying something, but it will be perceived by someone else as too much. Watch out, or you're doing this all the time. And it's like, no, I'm not. So it's sort of like a two-edged sword as well, a little bit, because okay, the thing that comes up in my head is like, what if it's enough that I can convince myself? Because what's coming up in my head is like, yeah, it isn't enough that I've convinced myself because the rest of the world still doesn't believe it. But what if it is enough that I know that I've got this? And when do I know that I've got this? The answer is I'll never know. How can I know? At the same time as I also know that I have knowledge, skills, and tools today that I didn't have back in 2012, 13. In fact, I'd moved to a place where I had no, you know, basically no friends here. So network, none. So today I have a network. Today I have tools and skills and abilities. So life can throw some shit at me. And it can blow a storm. And I've got it. I've got it. And I can recover quicker than I did before, because I can label the enemy. I can see it. I know the feelings, and I can work to shift it, even if it still takes time. But I know there wasn't like I was saying, I was deliberately ignoring it before.
You actually said you were forcing it. You were forcing it and pushing it away. It was not just deliberately ignoring it. Like you were actively pushing it away.
Actively, absolutely. And I don't do that now. I do look at it and I go, okay, what's happening here? Okay, recalibrate. Stop, think about it, look at it. What's happening here? It's because as well, old habits die hard, as they say. So, my instinct is to do things the way that I did for years.
Yeah, there's something on that there, because I feel are you good on time here? Like I wanted to give space for this to be said here, for you to express what needed to be expressed. Are you good with time? I still have some time.
Yeah.
If you are.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So there's an element here. I feel very honored in hearing this here. There's I can feel there's like an energy shift into like, okay, so now like this has been the story. This is part of the journey. This is where I am. And this is the reality. There's a reality of the people who know me and love me in my life, who've been with me through that period of burnout. Like, there is a very real, like, I just feel the love and care you have for your sons and for your family. Like there's a very real part of like honoring that, while at the same time honoring you. Like there's this element of like, it's not just about them and making sure that they're growing. I absolutely know that's at the core of it. And there's Philippa's desires, Philippa's wants, Philippa's like need for growth and challenge and exploration, and the world that she sees for herself and the life that she's seen for herself. And both of those things are existing. And I'm hearing right now, as it relates to burnout in particular, some tension that's there. I want to give some space here in this next part of the conversation to kind of look at it and see, okay, as you are creating, to take on the conversation from the place of creation. But before we do that, I think we need to honor and acknowledge like the space of what you've shared here. Right. I'm going to ask just a few questions here, just to check in with you, see where you are, and the elements that firstly, just how are you? Let me just check in with you. Like how are you? You're sharing, you shared this here. What's going on either internally, externally? However that answer is for you, let me know.
Solid.
Yeah, that's what I feel.
Yeah.
That's what I feel. The thing that I got from this here, as you're talking, is like I have a distinction when it comes to stories. Like if you notice, there was just a lot of space for you to share your story, and that was intentional. There was like it was the reason it was intentional was I'm like, you're not in victimhood around this. You're not a victim of it. There, this is a story of someone who's owned this element. And it's like this is a part of my life. This is a part of my history. This is a part of my present, even in different ways, but it is not acting on me. It is something that you own. And so I want to acknowledge you, like, firstly for that like, because it doesn't feel like you're a victim of it in the same way. Like, but, and if that was the case, our conversation would have gone in a different way, very different, like very early on. But this felt like someone who's like, this is my story. This is where it was. And let me just let that out into this space.
Yeah. Yeah. And it felt very like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to acknowledge you, because it's a very different, it's completely different. And there's some people who are there are people who will hear your story one day that you can share from a place of ownership that might still be in victimhood around it, and not know that, like, well, actually just to know that it's even possible to come out on the other side as you are, or to go through the journey. I don't know what the other side is. There's a part of me that is very cautious about euphemistic terms or completion, or like Sunny Rainbow, like, yeah, you're on the other side, but to know that there are like you've gone through the journey so much so that, like, for years it was hard for you to hold down a long-term job, a full-time job, right? Like, you've really gone through it, and you know what the impact is on your family, especially those that you've made a lot of decisions to invest in them. and you also see what that impact is, and you carry with you some elements of those things. And I just acknowledge your ownership of that right here. And I wanted to state the power in hearing you share this story in this way.
Thanks. Yeah.
What was your greatest insight, or the thing that surprised you, or something that like you're like, oh wow, that I didn't expect, or I'm really glad that I said it, or whatever it is, or like what was something in the story that you just shared that felt fresh to you or meaningful?
I'm glad that I said that I wanted the move too, so that I could fly, and leading on then into acknowledging that the insight was that I wanted something that I still haven't got. That what and I hadn't realized that there until now, that there was a vision, there was something, even if I hadn't written it down and it was super clear to me, this is it. There was something diffuse, a feeling, a way of living and being that I was dreaming that I haven't managed to achieve yet. And that could also, that insight of linking it to, is that why I feel that burnout is still there? And then just from the last thing you said, that it isn't maybe about recovery. It's maybe not about coming out the other side. That there isn't maybe a beginning or end, because there's a beginning and end to life, but what happens to us in life, there isn't really a beginning and end. It's just a continuum. And perhaps freeing myself from that as well, that there is an end and therefore I can let go. It's almost like that burnout has become another layer of my complexity and will be that part of me. And as much as other values, experiences, everything else, is makes us complex as people. It's not something to park, to package, to put over there as, well, that's my story. It's and that kind of feels also sad to say that, because I guess there's a feeling that I would really like to just fix it, solve it. It's like the things that people say is like, oh, you can burn out again, and people say that it goes quicker next time. These things, it's like they come up as demons in my head as well. And it's like, but somehow in what I was just saying, although it's bringing up tears and a feeling of sadness in me, that maybe there's something in that, though, that actually is quite powerful. That there's a level of acceptance of that being actually part of me and who I am. And how, where that sits in me, or how that sort of, I don't know right now. I don't.
Yeah, don't like. Yeah, I think this is don't get to that. Like
Yeah.
we're in the awareness part, and like I said, I don't have any real destination here other than to give you a chance to see this with different perspectives, right? and part of the thing that comes up through this is that we're excavating and giving you different levels of awareness around this, so you can see it, take it out of the blind spot, and give you a chance to see it, so that when you're out in the world and you find yourself either wanting to create or not creating, or feeling that something's holding you back, or feeling that like something like something's off, you know, you have more that you can look at and be able to identify and say, oh, here it is. This is like the, you have more of those resources available to you in your own toolkit. And look, there's an element of this that, you know, I'm going to ask that we hold it open to, this could be you. It could be a part of you. It could have been you for a time, whatever it is. When you talk right now, you remind me of when I meet people, and I'm like, I'm a recovering people pleaser. I'm a recovering people pleaser. I'm not a recovered people pleaser. Every single day, I have to go out in the world and make sure that, like, today I'm going to show up real. Today I'm going to show up honest. In this conversation, I'm going to do it. The first like 20 minutes of this conversation, when we're setting up the conversation here, I'm like, someone's going to watch this and be like, why didn't he just jump in? Like, what, like, you know, like, and there was probably part of the reason why when things came up around the definitions at the very beginning, I ended up like stating what I stated, where I'm like, let's not worry about other people. I'm a recovering people pleaser. It is the basis of the business that I have. You know, it is like, and I recognize it because and as such, I use that now to go out into the world and help people like own who they are, while I'm also working in real time on my own people pleasing. Like, this is like, and I have, and there are levels that I have that keep showing up with it. There are levels where I've gotten above it and I'm like, cool, got it, nailed it, like totally got the people pleasing thing down. And then I'll step into a higher level. And when I get to that next level, it'll show up again. You know, I'm now doing the World Joy Movement. There will be some people pleasing that shows up. And I don't know how it's going to show up, but it's going to be something where maybe it starts out as collaboration and then it turns into something more insidious or less me, you know. I don't know, but like from what I have experienced, part of my journey on this earth is to be in the state of recovery around that and continue to consistently own more of who I am. When I say that there, what, if anything, comes up for you?
No, that was lovely. I've heard you say this before as well. I'm recovering people pleaser. And then thinking, wow, that's a great way of, you know, I am a recovering hyperachiever, or came up in my head, because that was, I think, you know, that's what drove me.
I like how it's hyperachiever, not just high achiever. Like, it has its own space. It's like there's something that's there.
Oh yeah, it was over. It was too much, you know, and so that kind of was like, oh right, because you see, then that I was thinking while you were saying that, I'm like, oh right, because then that means the answer to the question that you asked me, you know, what if, or when you know, when do I know that I'm good, that I've got this, you know, and it's like, and I said, like, well, maybe never, because that's life. And then realizing that's part of being the recovering part of it, is that is my dark side, and that is there, and that's part of me. And to redefine it like that, that's actually really interesting. Yeah.
Continue to allow it to like expand. Like, this is why we're playing the game this way, right? Nothing we're saying is absolute truth, but for you to be able to have access to that as a potential way of being,
Yeah.
as a potential way of being in there, and You know, I think about you, I think about your clients. I think like we've had conversations around how you've given in spaces, and then like, and like, it's like, wait a minute, there are things there are actions that you take to, and like to mitigate against one element of the other. And it's like, I'm glad that you put this down here. I'm glad that this is now a part of our relationship here, because it gives us a chance to be able to see, okay, what additional tools can I take on my journey of being a hyperachiever? Look, here's the thing. I'm a recovering people pleaser, but like, one of the things that's big for me is that, like, I just realized that I wasn't pleasing people at a high enough level, right? I'm still a people pleaser. I just do it like much better, with much more impact, with much more like sustainability. Like it's like I can see your smile right. I'm like I'm gonna serve you so powerfully, you'll never forget this conversation for the rest of your life, and you're gonna want to come back again, you know. But this time I'm not gonna do it because I think that this was gonna make you feel good, or like, actually, let's not go there because it's gonna. No, I'm going to like carve out the path for us to go exactly to the places that we wouldn't normally be able to go. And I'm going to say the things that are uncomfortable for me. And in this conversation, it was not saying anything, you know, and just letting it out. Like, the people pleaser in me would have been like, mm-hmm, oh yeah, uh-huh. Yeah. Silence. Nothing on my face. Like you share what you need to share. There's no judgment at all. There's no reaction at all. If I'm going to be a people pleaser, let me people please at a much higher level. And I'm hearing like you're a hyperachiever, and at some point, like this, like the elements of this of like, watch out, like like it can come back again. It's like I'm hearing your story. It's like, you saw this coming. It wasn't a surprise that you woke up one day and you're like, oh. You saw it coming. You saw it happening. You felt it happening. You felt yourself crying in the office. You saw this happening. You and you're like pushing it away, pushing it away. I got to take care of this. Like, you knew all the right buttons to push so that you would just keep moving forward. You just actively ignored or pushed it out.
Yeah.
It was never like it was never like it snuck up on you, ever. Am I getting that right?
You are so right. It's absolutely.
Yeah.
And I can have like hundreds of memories of coming up in my head now of times when I literally pushed it away.
Yeah. For you, depending on what you want to do with your business and depending on like where you want people to go, like, there's a message that you yourself, like, your story here, I get goosebumps thinking about it again. It is incredibly captivating because it's so real. It is so real. Like, how many hyperachievers out there are caring for their family? They're powerhouse women, they're powerhouse people, and they're just doing whatever it takes, thinking that that's what's going to get them there. And then at the end of it, you get to the end, you get what you did it, you think you got it all, and then you think to yourself, I think I failed them.
Yeah.
Sometimes we hear these stories and they're talking about what is it? If you climb the ladder of success only to find out it's on the wrong wall.
Yeah.
Like, you have your own version of this. You have your own version of like I was pushing through. I ignored everything because I'm like, this is what's best for them. And then you got to the end, you're like, I don't even know like if it was worth it at all.
Yeah. I can have that thought. Absolutely.
There's something in this conversation right now that I just want to make sure that I'm being mindful of, right? What I'm being mindful of, I just want to just say it so that it doesn't, it's in the conversation on my end. So let me say it so that it can be a bit more removed from it. Philippa, you're someone out there that might be able to really make an impact for people who are on the path of hyperachievement. You and your story and the way that you are and the faith, like, you might be able to reach them in a way that most other people will come out and be like, no, watch out, you don't want to burn out. It's like, no. That's not that's not what we need to hear. In fact, like, I already have my own worries. I don't need you. And I know that you have your own worries, and it's a bad cycle for you to add your worry on, add worrying about me to your list of worries. Did I get that right? Is that what you're
Yeah,
expressing?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
There's something in there when you said I can think of 100 memories. My thing is, to the extent, like, and I can say this to you because you're in ownership rather than victimhood. If you're in victimhood, there will be other work that needs to be done to go and share these stories out in the world. However, if you're willing to share some of these stories, the hundreds of moments where you saw it along the way, right? Like, these are areas that we're coaches, like, we can get past the fluff of, like, go out in the world and live your best life, or go out and be like, create, and don't hold yourself back and let yourself out there authentically, all that stuff. Great messages, but without the anchoring counterpoint of, like I've lived a life to know why this is meaningful.
Mm.
It becomes harder for people to actually be able to sink their teeth in and to know, like, oh, I trust her. She gets me.
Mm.
Not because she's saying things that I want to hear, but because, like, oh, I've been there. For me, it wasn't an office. It was me I dropped my kids off to school and I got in my car and just started crying. Or I left this room and I just started crying. I just got out of dinner. I just started crying. I was on a phone call with someone. I was in an airport bathroom. Like that moment has happened for thousands upon thousands of people.
Mm. Yeah. 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 And I absolutely, no question about that. That is so true. I am totally in 100% agreement and believe that. I can feel that actually as a sort of, there are thousands of people out there that I know have experienced something similar.
As we look out here, like, so the thing I need to put in here was not that in particular, but the thing I need to put out was like, oh wow, if there was some person who could actually serve this group of people, like, it would be you.
Mm.
Right? Like that's it. However, right, we do want to, I think there's also things, and I'll invite you to go back and rewatch this video and listen to your story, because there are actually, all throughout this year, like, it was like really clear that what your lead indicators were all throughout. Like, you're like, this happened, I could have seen it. I could, like, there was all these indications. When I said lead indicators, it was like, since it didn't just happen overnight, there are all these indications out there that help you see it. And for me, I get curious about, as you go out in the world and you do your upcoming creations, what's in place around these lead indicators here, to help you be able to yeah, to know how to move forward, or to know. It's almost like, I think about, like driving. If you get into a car accident, you're not like, I'll never drive again, or I've gone over 10 miles per hour, I gotta stop. It's like, no, but you need to have the speedometer and know, like, actually, I don't need to go at X, Y, and Z, or, oh, this is a busy intersection, I now know how to look at that intersection and approach it differently. So there's a part of me that's like, I'm actually in this moment right now. I gotta ask two questions, actually. One, are you in a space where you have the capacity to go, like to go any further with this, or, like, actually, have we gone where we need to go for today and you're complete? Let me ask that.
Yeah, I
Okay.
have the capacity to go further. Yeah.
Okay. All right. There's a part of me that, realizes that I need to make sure I ask you what it is that you want from, like, given all this that we've talked about here, right? All I knew is that we're going to create space for you to slow down and explore the burnout. Um, there's some things that if you're okay with, I'd like to take some time to share back some of the things that I heard that didn't just feel like yeah, that reached me, or that like, if you, how do I say it, that feel like they could either be tools in your toolkit or stories for you to continue supporting yourself and others. Are you good with me sharing back some of those that really stuck out? Okay. I talked to you already about the victim versus ownership. That really came through. you said something earlier, like you took a job that was too big for you, and you knew it, and there's a part of me that, like, as I was listening there, like, I'm like, okay, is that an indication? Should she not take on things that are too big for her? But then there was things that you said a little bit later on that came in where you're like, I was a principal. I took on the job as a principal, but I had 2 to 3 vice presidents and an assistant, and they all got sick. Like, what I got from there was, like, not only were you taking on something that was larger, like, than where you had been in the past, but the support system was there. You said I had no support system. I had no one there, and I was already in a job that stretched me, and I had to do everything on my own.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there's an element here that one of the things that comes out for me is like, okay, support system wise, as you, for whatever you choose to create now, like what is the support system that you actually want to have in place? And as those things fall off, what are your I call it like the andon cord, which is like a Toyota lean manufacturing thing, where it's like, if something's off on the assembly line, you shut the whole assembly line down and you fix it, and then you continue on. So, you literally said, like, I'll cope. Like, everyone fell away from you, and it's like, I'll cope. So that to me is also like that sentence, I'll cope, is an indicator. It's like a flashing light on it, like check engine.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Let me pause with that. There's going to be a couple things here, and any reactions to that, any response. Right now, I'm throwing it back. I'm not necessarily saying this is where you need to go with it. Thoughts?
No, but this is really good. This is, I love that, because that's definitely sort of things that I have in place, and some of it's a bit diffuse. And so this is going to be good to really make it more visual for me of putting on those brakes and going, that's it, stop, that's it, this is, you can't carry on like this. And there, definitely I have a completely different support system here that it's very clear for me now. And thinking about it as well, it's like, and it's something that it's an aspect, now that you've brought it up, I am going to keep as a living place to go back to. It's like, it's not, oh, I've got the structure in place, that's fine, now I can do what I like and it's going to be fine. It's like, check in. Does that structure still serve me? It's almost like a sort of risk assessment. Is like you send, if we're going to carry on with the cars and everything, it's like, you send the car to the MOT, they go and, you get to check every few years or whatever. It's like, don't hop over it, do it, because you don't want to be driving somewhere and you have a breakdown because you didn't do that check. Yeah. And sort of, or check the oil, don't hop over it, check the oil, because you don't want an overheated engine because you didn't check the oil. So I think I really like that, because it's like, okay, that actually is not only something that is going to be good for me, but it will be good for my future clients to actually visualize and have a strategy even around. It's like, it becomes a strategy. It becomes a check in, check oil, check the oil.
Yeah, like that's like, you said earlier, you said like, oh, I'm faster at recovering now, and I'm like Philippa, I don't want that for you. I don't want you to have to like get to a place where it's like, well, if the burnout did happen, I could come back much faster. It wouldn't take years this time. That's not it, right? We're in the place of, and like the car analogy for me is, it's like, we don't want you to be in fear every time you get into the car. We want we do understand that like for, like, as someone, like, I remember myself at 22 years old driving all through. There was a time I was definitely driving too fast. I had ice cream that I wanted to eat at the same time. It was like an empty 6-lane highway, and I was trying to do so much, and I just, like, it was a recipe for disaster. And I'm really glad that it didn't end up that way. and it just changed the way I drove going forward. Now it's a different experience that you've had. I'm not trying to truly relate it there, and I will I think I'm going to continue sharing back some of the things that you said. Like, cause I don't think that this is like here to be like, now look out for this, look out for that. That's not really the intent. The intent here is to share back some things that you said that were part of the story that maybe you're aware of it, maybe you're not, can continue to be in your toolkit, and perhaps you're using it for you, or perhaps you're using it as language to help someone else know, like, hey, by the way, like you're a hyperachiever. Like, here goes someone, like, what is your equivalent of this? I heard things from you. You said, I don't want to be here. Like you knew, I don't want to be here. So that to me feels like a lead indicating phrase, the I'll cope, like another lead indicating phrase that's there. What was it that you had said earlier? I'm just looking really quickly at some of the quotes that you said, some of the things that stuck out as like thoughts that might be thoughts that might be there without actually being feelings, right? I could just pick up my bags and leave. I force myself to do everything. I'll stay there, right? And then the last thing I'm going to point out for now, and then I just need to just check in with you on one other thing, is the element of the powerhouse. My goodness, my friend, I knew you were powerful, right? The thing for me is that I wouldn't want you to hide your powerhouseness, right? I think there's an element like you share a story like this, and you're like our last conversation, like, I'm looking to like come in and be in my power there. It's like, yo, you started out this conversation and we know where your power is immediately. There's no power pose or I got to step into my body or any of that stuff. You're like, I was out there advocating for children's rights. And like, when it comes to education and this, you know where else my power lies? If someone comes even close to like bullying my child within 24 hours, that is rectified. That is done. I do not tolerate it. I do not tolerate it. Yeah, let's come up as I say this here for you.
Yeah, I'm laughing, yeah, because yeah.
Yeah. So and you talk about like the power of being in control of my life and my destiny, and not contributing. And for me, when you said that, the thing that came up once again was around the word powerhouse. And in my mind, it's like, okay, as we go forward, like, Philippa is a powerhouse. Like, and denying you the ability to be a powerhouse is denying you, right? And like that's I don't want to be. I want to say, like, go be a house, because if you're a powerhouse, you'll burn out. No, like let's go ahead and help you be a powerhouse, but now let's help you be a powerhouse at the level that you are actually at for what it is. It's like, you run anything too long at the wrong speed, or the wrong, like, how do I say it? Yeah, if you just run anything that's like, going back to cars right now, it's like, if you take you drive a Ferrari and you can push that as hard as you need to push it, even though like pushing might be a different thing that you would do. Someone's gonna be like, you never would do that with a Ferrari, but like, but there's certain cars that are made for that kind of things. It doesn't mean that all cars can't go, right? And so I get really curious about what does Philippa need? Like who is Philippa as this new level of powerhouse? What is the clean, sustainable way to be a powerhouse in this space? Like to play at this level, like upgrading your powerhouse levels. What are the support systems you have around you? What are the thoughts that you're listening out to? What are the systems and lead indicators that go around you? That to me feels like the big question. It's like, how do you continue to be a powerhouse? Because I know I experience you. You have so much energy, so much to give in the world here. And I wouldn't want to go through our friendship and our relationship and everything from here, from the standpoint of like, but I can't, like, if I return back to powerhouseness, everything might be at risk.
Mm. Exactly. Yeah. And that feels so liberating when you say that.
What
It's like,
what feels liberating?
well, it's like, you saying that, and I'm like, I get it now. I can be a powerhouse, and it's okay. And at this space, I mean, I feel space, like mentally, in my emotions now, I feel space, that there is space for me to do that. It's sort of a faith, more than belief, faith. It's landed there. That it's, yeah. It feels good. It feels good. It's like, yeah, I can be who I am. Full stop.
Period. Full stop. Yeah. I'm feeling here, Philippa, that this is a good place for us to I would want to go on. There's so much here. Like we talked a lot. I think it'd be a good space for us to complete this conversation, let some of this stuff integrate, and then come back again to see like, okay, now we can talk about the creation question again.
Yeah.
You know, part of it being how do we create you so you can go out and create, uh, create in the world. There's stuff about what, yeah. There's it's yeah, and I think that's what I want to hold as continue to hold as space for you, continue to hold as space to play inside of the World Joy Movement. It's funny you started out this whole thing around burnout doesn't really live with joy. I'm like the a movement is supposed to take you somewhere. To me, when you described this here, what I heard, like I heard that the result was burnout, but I was hearing a story of suffering, you know, and it was like I will cope, I can deal with this, I will be with this here. Actually, you know what, whether you're suffering or not, it's you like shut up and get the work done, you know. And to me, when I look at like the World Joy Movement, it is a movement of saying how do we take a world that is currently suffering with people who are currently suffering and help make a more joyful space out of it. So suffering is actually right at the core of this stuff.
Yeah.
It is absolutely there. Someone might have burnout, someone might have like financial like turmoil, someone like we'll have different results of it all, but we're suffering.
Yeah.
We're suffering. And if we're not calling that out, then we lose our credibility in our authenticity in terms of actually being in a joyful conversation because we get it, we know it, we've lived it, and we are now actively doing things not just to protect ourselves against it, but saying, given that we have this knowledge, how can we now apply that in a way that like can help us and help others not just avoid it, but continue to create success even beyond that.
Yeah. 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 That was good. That was a good reframe. It's a story of suffering. Mm. Mm.
So I think this is the right time. I think we complete here, right? We complete here, we create additional space for us we let some integration come through. We create additional space for us to say, okay, and you can let me know. Maybe we're not at creation phase. Maybe you're like, look, some things came out and I want to just understand like, how do I take what I just said and use that powerfully or use that to create myself as a powerhouse or whatever it is. We'll see what it is. But I think that it'd be the wrong move in this moment right now to just try and like bring us into that kind of creation energy. We're creating something different right now. I think we
Yeah.
want to give some space for integration first.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'd love that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything else that you'd like to say in order to be complete in this space here?
No, it was lovely landing on those two words, full stop or period. That was, I realized that there were no more words. It was like, yeah, I could have said that. I'm complete.
There it is. There it is. Well, thank you, Philippa. I'm going to make a quick address to everyone here. You can stay on, you can take off, but I'm going to just make a quick address here. Y'all, this is why we play in the World Joy Movement. Like, this is it's a conversation that gives space for everything, because like we are out there trying to figure out something that hasn't been done yet. And we are people, we are humans that are going through it our own self. We have our own human experience. I invite you to watch, to reflect, and to also just watch this a few times, watch various parts of the story, watch some of the interactions afterwards, see how we integrated, see why did we pause in certain places, what were going on there, and notice not just the content of the conversation, which in and of itself was powerful, but the context in which we actually used to get to some of the places that we did and the choices that we made, so that you can bring into your world, into your context, a new and additional tools and resources to have deeper, more powerful, more meaningful conversations and more actions from there.
It's the World Joy Movement. Yeah. What was your greatest insight from this conversation? And if you want to come and be a part of a conversation like this live, it's really simple. Just go to beworldjoy.com and come introduce yourself, and let's take the conversation to the next level, because you're there now. All right, let's play.